Hey you guys, it's Mix JB back with another video, and continuing on with my race and ethnic studies capstone project. I wanted this video to really touch on my experience with with battling white supremacy at a PWI. So let's get right into it. So for starters, I will say my experience with battling white supremacy at a predominantly white institution has many levels and factors to it. First, getting into my positionality, I identify as a mixed race Black person, queer, genderqueer, non-binary, gay person. I identify as an urban city youth. I identify as um, working class, middle class, somewhere in that area. I'm about to graduate college, so I will also be a first generation student as well. And I mentioned all of this to really get to the heart of my experience in this case study. So for me, I attend a school in um, a very rural area, very different from what I have personally experienced growing up, being born and raised in the city of Chicago. And initially, I didn't experience a lot of culture shock. That wasn't initially my experience when attending the school. For me, I was really excited to go. I was an inner city kid who wanted to really just, for whatever reason, go out into the country and see what was up for me in different areas, specifically a more country, cornrows and crops type of area. And that quickly turned into an eye-opening experience. So what I will say is, although systemic racism, institutionalized racism, and all the isms, homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, transmisogyny, um, just xenophobia, ethnocentrism, all those ideas definitely exist in Chicago as it is such a segregated city still to this day. But what was different about this experience attending a PWI was this was the first time I entered a majority all white space. Um, in the terms of we're all coming into our adulthood at this time. And for me, this experience was very challenging for the most part. Um, as white supremacy at the school has really just been basically shifted. White supremacy at this institution has basically shifted in many ways. And this institution is not one where um, institutionalized racism, systemic racism, is necessarily very blatant. It's very veiled and very disguised. And for me, coming to this campus, I felt very isolated for so many different reasons. I came out in college, and so I was very isolated from queer communities, queer Black and brown communities in Chicago for the majority of my experience at this school. And that led me to having to formulate my own communities. And the school's infrastructure is not one that caters to Black and brown and queer people, um, especially when I first came to campus. I feel like that is starting to shift, but change, as we all know, occurs very slowly, very slowly. And for me, this school has really done a number on my physical, my mental, and emotional health in terms of love, in terms of self-love, really, because when everyone around you doesn't share your experience, it could be such a gaslighting experience to have people not understand who you are and having to continuously explain who you are day in and out, inside and outside of classes, especially when you're dealing with white people who have never seen a black person, who have never seen queer people in their other small rural towns that they decided to come to St. Olaf to maybe not replicate, but to continue a fantasy of homogenized community. This school is one where, like many PWIs, black and brown students, international students, queer students are fed many lies about what the community can be, what on-campus life can feel like, all in an attempt to increase diversity numbers in what we like to call in critical ethnic studies neoliberal multiculturalism. That's such a big word, but really all it breaks down to is white supremacy enveloping this word of diversity to have us feel as though we're being included or we're making progress, and that is not the case. Because when you only have black and brown people, queer people for numbers, not for recognizing that they are people who need support, who need their own individualized support, living in a world that doesn't cater to us. It's very damaging and very harmful to the mental, emotional, and physical health of the students who attend the school. It's really difficult because not only do we have to function here under the positionality of students, we also have to exist in a world, in specifically a campus that doesn't want us here, and they may not say it outwardly. They may not exert it in a way that feels alienating. They're going to exert it in a way that feels palatable, that feels acceptable, that feels as though we're doing you a favor by allowing you to join our beloved community. I should also mention this is a private institution, very religious, in the Lutheran faith. And that could also be very damaging because people with varying backgrounds and positionalities don't all carry Christian when it comes to their religious views. I say all of this to say a lot of these admissions offices admit students and then lump them all together as if they grew up in the same world, as if they have known each other, as if once they connect in person, they will just be friends. And these groups are painted in a very monolithic way. So, with that being said, I do not claim to speak for any community. I can represent and walk with my positionality within these communities. But as we all know, those who have been doing the work know, we are not monolithic. We are not one-dimensional people within any community, but specifically Black and brown and queer communities. I guess I'll end this video by saying, I don't know if I've personally dealt with white supremacy in a very positive way. What I mean by positive, The positive way I'm speaking of is healthily. I don't think there is a healthy way to deal with white supremacy. It's so pervasive, it's violent, it's death, it is exclusionary, it's discriminatory, it's capitalistic, it's misogynistic, it's an all pervasive system that forces us to walk through our lives knowing that it is always chained to our ankles, and that wherever we go, it surely will follow. The only bright side to get through this would be to manage your mental health in a positive way. And that's what I'll be touching on in my next video, talking about dealing with depression and anxiety through mindful meditation. I hope you all have learned something, at least about my experience, through this video, and I will see you all in the next one.